Hi, welcome to another episode of Hot Takes, and boy, this one's a doozy. The EHRC, which is the Equalities and Human Rights Commission, not to be confused with the ECHR, the European Commission on Convention on Human Rights. Anyway, it is basically the watchdog for equalities in this country. It's the one that oversees things like the Equalities Act, for example. It also has leaning in on health and safety at work in some parts. But it's intervened because of the Labour Party. It's got the Labour Party fully in its sights after something the Labour Party's done as a matter of policy. And it's looking into this. It considers that Labour may be in breach of the Equalities Act. This, of course, is the act that they themselves, Labour, brought in. So ironic. Labour have insisted, this is coming from the very top now, they've insisted that tightening the rules on single-sex spaces to protect women is unnecessary. So they're officially saying, we don't want to protect women. We don't need to protect women. That means the opposite is also true. They are actively working to harm women. If you're actively working not to protect them, you are by definition actively working to harm them. That is what's happening. And so the EHRC has come out and said, right, this is unacceptable. You cannot do this. You mustn't do this. You must not put women in harm's way by policy. Labour are fighting it. But the fact is that it doesn't matter if they fight it. The EHRC sits atop them in terms of being the watchdog and obeying the equality law, which Labour have to do, or they're in breach of the courts. So they have said that the EHRC have said they want to see the transgender and sexuality and whatever policies of every single public body in Britain. So that's all parish councils, town council, borough councils, county councils, district councils, lord mayorships, the Houses of Parliament, the House of Lords, schools, police, fire, ambulance, hospitals, everything. And they're going to go through and they're going to examine it. And they're going to highlight every example of where policy has been changed within these organisations that will actively harm women by allowing biological men into female safe spaces. The era of woke is truly coming to an end. You now have the official watchdog actively working against the government to protect women because the government refuses to do so. And indeed, the government is trying to actively harm women by allowing men into safe spaces, by allowing grown biological males to go and expose themselves in front of 9-year-old girls. That's the government's policy. I would suggest, therefore, if that's their policy, then every single member of the Labour Party is a paedophile. Right? That's it. Every single one. Because if they're standing by this policy, that's what they're actually doing. Now, Baroness Faulkner, chairman of the EHRC, said it would be examining all of them, each and every single policy, and deciding whether the Equality Act, which allows organisations to restrict access to women-only safe spaces, such as bathrooms and changing rooms, for example, to those who are born female. Quite right. And that it is being followed correctly. So any public organisation that allows a male into a female changing room, into a female toilet, would be in breach of the Equality Act and can be sued. And the chief executive officer, the CEO of each of those organisations, would personally be liable. This is the great thing about the Equality Act. It doesn't just work on a corporate level. It holds the chief executive of that organisation personally liable for these things, in the same way as health and safety. It might be the company that got something wrong, but the CEO can go to prison. And it's the same with this. So let me just imagine that they've put a couple of CEOs in prison for endangerment. I guarantee every other organisation, public and private, would all of a sudden completely change their rules, and that women would be safe. Children would be safe. Strange men who have a gynecological fetish about wearing women's clothes and getting strange erections for the thought of having women's knickers cuddling their testicles would suddenly find themselves quite literally out in the cold, having to dress like they are and walk into a male dressing room or a male toilet. Why not? When they're getting their cocks out to have a piss, sounds about right to me. But anyway, Baroness Faulkner's gone on, and her comments, it comes after the the Office of Equality and Opportunity. What a name! Is that opportunity of outcome, or equality of outcome, or equality of opportunity? There's a difference. Anyway, this last week brushed aside fears. For many public bodies, were allowing people to access services based on their self-identified gender. And this is because they were saying, oh, well, no, he feels like he wants to be a woman, so we have to treat him like a woman. No, we don't. We don't have to do anything. We're human beings. We make our own decisions. And I don't want to treat a man who wears a dress as a woman. He's a man in a dress. That's it. End of story. If he owns a prostate, he's a man. Don't care what he's done. Don't care what he's had inserted to give himself boobs. Don't care what he's had to cut off and folded and tucked to make it look like he's got a vagina. He hasn't. He's just got a little hole. And, where a cock used to be, but he's still male. Male DNA, male muscle, male skeleton. Internally male. Prostate, mental. But hey, that should not allow him the right to go in and oogle and look at 9-year-old girls in a changing room. And yet that's what the Labour Party insist must happen. Anyway, it said that it found quite a few examples where the guidance was not being interpreted correctly after members of the public raised concern about over 400 organisations that were allowing men into women-only spaces. And quite right too. And in response, Faulkner wrote to the Equalities Minister Annalise Dodds, a woman who always looks like she's Wurzel Gummidge's sister, always looks like she's been dragged backwards through a field, through a hedge, and then slapped about a bit, doesn't she? Anyway, thanking her for sending the EHRC 42 cases where the Equality Act 2010 was identified to have been misinterpreted. She said, we'd find it helpful to receive the remaining 362 cases submitted to you. Why weren't they included? Annalise Dodds knows why they weren't included. They wouldn't have been acceptable. So we'll very carefully pick these 42 to make it look as though we're doing something and hide the rest. Deary me. Well, they've really shot their bolt. Instead of hiding 362 cases, the ECHR are now looking, or the EHRC, get it the right way around, are now looking at each and every one of them. There's going to be quite a few, dirty little secrets coming out, I think. There's a lot of people are going to be very unhappy, and hopefully a lot of prosecutions. Thanks very much. Bye.